the Academy's biggest mistake. Commander Krell Thor's upper tentacles twitched with barely contained annoyance as he stared at the admission document floating on his holo screen. His lower tentacles, all 8 of them, were drumming an irritated rhythm on his pristine desk. The Elite Galactic Academy had maintained its standards for over 3,000 cycles, and now this. A human, he spat the word like it was a particularly disgusting piece of rotted Vraxian fruit. The Council expects me to admit a human to the most prestigious military academy in the 7 systems. His assistant, Officer Plex, a towering Andromedian with crystalline skin, cleared her throat. The Council's directive was quite clear, sir. They believe adding diversity will benefit the Academy. Diversity? Hey, Krell Thor's laugh sounded like grinding gears. Next they'll want us to admit those gas-based lifeforms from Nebula 9. At least those can float. The door chimed, and Krell Thor's worst nightmare walked in. Luna Martinez stood 5 feet 6 inches tall, painfully human, with dark hair pulled back in what their species called a ponytail. The most advanced combat suit credits could buy looked ridiculously bulky on her frail frame. Reporting for orientation, Commander Luna said, her voice steady despite the weight of 24 alien eyes studying her every move. The other new cadets, who had been waiting in the hall, peered around her with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright disdain. Yazok, a Centaurian built like a living tank, snorted through his armored nostrils. Is this some kind of joke? My youngest hatchling has more muscle mass than this creature. Watch it. Big guy, Luna shot back, a small smile playing at her lips. I hear Centaurians have trouble with basic calculus. Maybe we can help each other out. The room temperature dropped several degrees as Yazok's bioluminescent patches flared with embarrassment. Krell Thor noticed with growing despair that the human's file indicated top scores in all academic entrance exams. Cadet Martinez, Krell Thor announced, trying to maintain some semblance of protocol. Welcome to the Elite Galactic Academy, where we forge the finest warriors in known space. Though some of us, he paused meaningfully, might need more forging than others. Thank you, Commander Luna replied cheerfully. I look forward to being hammered into shape. A ripple of confused murmurs spread through the assembled cadets as they tried to process the human's strange metaphor. Only Officer Plex seemed to catch the sarcasm, her crystalline features briefly reflecting an amused rainbow pattern. Your assigned quarters are in Block 7, Krell Thor continued, already dreading the modifications they'd had to make for human environmental requirements. Along with other specialized cases. Specialized cases, Luna raised an eyebrow. Let me guess, the rest of us mere mortals who can't bench press a shuttle. Before Krell Thor could respond, a holographic display materialized in the center of the room, showcasing the Academy's illustrious history. Images of legendary graduates, all from naturally superior species, floated by in a parade of martial glory. For 3,000 cycles. Krell Thor declared, his tentacles rising dramatically, this academy has produced the finest officers in the combined fleet. Our graduates command respect across the galaxy. They are the pinnacle of evolution, the perfect synthesis of physical prowess and tactical brilliance. No pressure, then, Luna muttered, earning a few surprised clicks and whistles from her future classmates. As Krell Thor launched into the traditional welcoming speech, he couldn't shake the feeling that allowing this human into the academy would either be his greatest mistake or no. He decided firmly, watching Luna's fragile human fingers struggling with the standard-issue datapad. There was no, or this was definitely going to be the biggest mistake in the Academy's history. If only he knew just how wrong that assumption would prove to be. The physical training arena of the Elite Galactic Academy looked more like a gravity-defying circus than a military facility. Beings of various shapes, sizes, and numbers of appendages leapt, flew, and sometimes phased through obstacle courses designed to challenge the galaxy's finest. And then there was Luna Martinez, currently dangling from an anti-gravity bar 30 feet in the air, wondering if human dignity was worth sacrificing for the sake of not falling to her doom. Having trouble, soft-skinned Yazok called from below, his massive form casting a shadow that could eclipse a small moon. Perhaps you should have joined one of those human educational facilities. What do you call them? Kindergarten. Luna took a deep breath, her arms trembling. Thanks for the concern, big guy. But I'm just hanging out here, enjoying the view of your spectacular failure at quantum mechanics this morning. The Centaurian's bioluminescent patches flashed an angry red. It was true, Luna had topped the theoretical physics assessment, much to everyone's shock. Unfortunately, academic excellence didn't help much when you were expected to complete an obstacle course designed for beings who could manipulate gravity. "Time's up," Cadet Martinez Training Officer Vex announced, her serpentine body coiled around the control platform. "That's your third attempt. 0 points again." Luna finally let go, allowing the safety field to catch her. Her muscles screamed in protest as she stood, trying to maintain her composure despite the snickers from her classmates. "Permission to speak, Officer Vex," granted. The instructor's forked tongue flicked out in annoyance. "The course parameters assume the trainee can generate their own gravitational field or possesses natural flight capabilities," Luna pointed out. "Perhaps we could discuss alternative methods that achieve the same tactical objectives." Officer Vex's scales rippled with amusement. "And in real combat, will you ask the enemy to kindly accommodate your limitations?" "No, ma," Luna replied, a glint in her eye. "But I might surprise them with solutions they never considered." For instance, she pulled out her datapad, quickly bringing up a simulation. "If we factor in momentum conservation and the angular velocity of the rotating platforms." The entire class watched in stunned silence as Luna demonstrated a theoretically sound method of completing the course using purely mechanical means. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't conventional, but it would work. "Fascinating," Officer Vex admitted grudgingly, "but utterly impractical in real-world conditions." "Like the time humans defeated a Kraxon battle fleet with nothing but mirrors and basic geometry?" Luna asked innocently. Several cadets shifted uncomfortably, remembering that particular case study from military history. Later that day, in the communal dining hall, Luna sat alone at her reinforced table. Standard tables weren't designed to withstand the weight of some species' meals, which meant lighter beings got segregated to their own section. She was reviewing combat footage on her datapad when a shadow fell across her screen. "We've been watching you," human growled Nexar, a hulking draconid whose scales could deflect energy weapons. Behind him stood several other cadets, including Yazok. "You may have the instructors fooled with your clever words and theories, but we know the truth. You're making a mockery of this academy." Luna saved her work and looked up calmly. "Interesting theory. Care to explain how I'm currently ranked first in tactical analysis, third in strategic planning, and somehow managing not to die despite my pathetic human frailty?" You're cheating somehow," Nexar sputtered, smoke curling from his nostrils. "Right," Luna nodded seriously. "I'm cheating at having a brain. Guilty as charged. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go study for tomorrow's zero-gravity combat simulation. I have this crazy idea involving Newton's laws and your species' notorious inner ear vulnerability." The draconid's eyes widened slightly. That particular physiological weakness wasn't common knowledge. As the group of bullies retreated, Luna allowed herself a small smile. She might not be able to win through brute force, but information was its own kind of weapon. And humans? They'd turned information warfare into an art form long before they reached the stars. "They'll learn," she muttered to herself, pulling up more species-specific biological data. "Or they won't. Either way, I'm not going anywhere." Commander Krell Thor's tentacles were practically dancing with sadistic glee as he addressed the assembled cadets in the grand hall. "The time has come for the annual survival challenge, a proud tradition that separates the true warriors from the passengers." His eyes lingered meaningfully on Luna, who was busy adjusting her environmental suit's temperature controls. The standard issue suit hadn't been designed with human thermal regulation in mind, and she'd already had to modify it 3 times. "This year's challenge will take place on Nexus 7, a jungle moon with some rather interesting features," Krell Thor continued, activating a holographic display. "Gravity fluctuations, carnivorous plant life, and atmospheric conditions that change faster than a Quantarian's political views." Luna studied the rotating image of the moon, noting the dense vegetation and strange electromagnetic patterns. Around her, other cadets were already forming their preferred teams, their whispered negotiations creating a buzz of excitement. "Teams will be assigned by academic ranking," Krell Thor announced, triggering a wave of groans. "Each team leader will select their members in reverse order of their combat training scores." "Oh, this should be good," Luna muttered as Nexar, the draconid, was called first. Despite her top academic rankings, her abysmal physical combat scores had placed her dead last in team selection. One by one, teams formed. The strongest, fastest, and most naturally gifted cadets were quickly snapped up. Finally, only the problematic cases remained. Blick, a photosynthetic being who struggled in darkness. Xena, an aquatic species who required constant hydration. And Torque, a brilliant but extremely anxious gelatinous who literally quivered at loud noises. Cadet Martinez. Krell Thor called, not bothering to hide his amusement. Your team awaits. Luna walked to the front, facing her new teammates. Blick's leaves drooped nervously, Xena's water tank bubbled with concern, and Torque. Well, Torque was doing their best to maintain a solid form. Equipment will be minimal, Krell Thor declared. 1 survival pack per team. No weapons above Class C. No communication devices except for emergency beacons. You have 6 planetary rotations to reach the extraction point. Sir Luna raised her hand. What about species-specific medical supplies? Each team has the same standardized med kit, Cadet Martinez. We wouldn't want to be unfair, would we? Luna glanced at her team, a plant that needed sunlight to survive, a fish out of water, and a blob that could barely hold it together. And her, the supposedly fragile human leading them all. No, sir, she replied with a sweet smile that made several instructors shift uncomfortably. We wouldn't want that at all. The dropship screamed through Nexus 7's turbulent atmosphere, their hulls glowing from the heat of re-entry. Luna's team huddled in their assigned compartment, trying to ignore the fact that their survival pack was significantly lighter than everyone else's. Approaching drop zone, the automated system announced, prepare for gravitational anomaly in 3-2. The ship lurched violently as it hit a gravity pocket. Torque splattered across the ceiling, Xena's hydration tank cracked, and Blick's photoreceptors started strobing in panic. Luna grabbed the survival pack just as the drop bay doors opened, revealing the jungle moon's hostile landscape below. Remember your training, and whatever the ship's AI drawled, clearly as enthusiastic about this mission as a computer could be. Try not to die. Goodbye. They jumped. The gravitational anomaly turned what should have been a controlled descent into chaos. Luna watched helplessly as her team was scattered across different vectors, their emergency thrusters fighting against the strange forces pulling them apart. She hit the canopy hard, branches snapping under her impact. Her modified environment suit absorbed most of the shock, but she still felt like she'd gone 10 rounds with a Centaurian. Through her heads-up display, she could see her teammates' emergency beacons blinking in different directions. Status report, she called through the short-range comm. Static answered, then Blick's trembling voice broke through. Critical light levels, dropping. The photosynthetic being gasped. Energy reserves at 60% and falling. Hydration at 43%. Xena gurgled, panic evident in their aquatic tones. Tank breach, containment failing. Torque's response was just a series of terrified wobbling sounds. Luna checked her position against the terrain map they'd been given. They needed to cover roughly 30 kilometers of hostile jungle to reach the extraction point. With her team scattered and their critical life support systems compromised, the situation looked grim. Then she smiled. Okay, team, she announced, pulling out the survival pack's contents. Time for some good old-fashioned human ingenuity. Blick, are you near any clearings? Negative, dense canopy everywhere. Luna nodded, pulling out the emergency flare they'd been given. See that red light in the sky? That's not a flare. That's your new personal sun. She launched the flare high above the canopy, its chemical reaction producing intense light that would last for hours. Get to higher ground. Photosynthesize. Build up your reserves. But that was our only flare, Xena protested. Trust me, Luna responded, already moving through the undergrowth. Torque, stop trying to maintain humanoid form. Spread yourself thin over tree bark, you'll be harder to spot, and it'll take less energy. The gelatinous being made a surprised sound, then comprehension dawned. Oh, like Earth's slime molds. I studied those in xenobiology. Luna reached Xena first, finding the aquatic kid desperately trying to patch their leaking hydration tank. The standard repair kit was useless for their specific equipment. Here's what we're going to do, Luna said, pulling out the emergency shelter's waterproof fabric. These jungle plants, they're hydrovascular. Like Earth's pitcher plants, we can use them to collect water and create a temporary containment system. But they're carnivorous, Xena bubbled nervously. Only the mature ones, Luna grinned, pointing to the younger specimens. These babies haven't developed their digestive enzymes yet. Thank you, mandatory Earth botany classes that everyone thought were useless. Within an hour, they had rigged a makeshift water collection and filtration system using the local flora and their limited supplies. Blick had recharged enough to move, and Torque was actually enjoying their new bark crawling mode of transportation. That's one crisis handled, Luna said, checking their position again. Now, about getting to that extraction point. A distant roar shook the trees, followed by the sounds of panicked shouting. Luna recognized Nexar's voice among them. Is that Torque quivered? Yep, Luna confirmed. Sounds like the mighty Draconid team just met some of the local wildlife, and from the sound of it, they're heading right for the quicksand fields we spotted on the map. Shouldn't we warn them? Blick's leaves twitched with concern. Oh, we will, Luna assured them. Right after we use their distraction to slip past the border patrol drones they've probably set up to ambush other teams. And maybe, just maybe, we'll show them why studying terrain analysis is just as important as being able to breathe fire. Her team stared at her with a mix of horror and growing admiration. You're kind of scary, Torque observed, rippling thoughtfully. For a human. Thanks, Luna grinned, already plotting their route. I learned from the best. Now, who's ready to show this jungle what the galaxy's most underestimated team can do? Night fell on Nexus 7 like a heavy curtain, bringing with it a drop in temperature that made Luna's environment suit work overtime. The team had made good progress, covering nearly half the distance to the extraction point when the first signs of trouble appeared. Movement detected, Blick whispered, their leaves vibrating at a frequency that indicated extreme stress. Large mass, approximately 40 meters out, and it's blocking our path to the valley. Luna held up her hand, signaling the team to freeze. Through the darkness, she could make out a massive shape prowling between the phosphorescent trees. The creature moved with the fluid grace of an apex predator, its 6 legs barely making a sound despite its enormous size. That's a Nexus Shadow Stalker, Zena bubbled quietly from their makeshift water pack. They hunt using thermal detection and can disable energy shields with their bioelectric field. Good thing we don't have energy shields, then, Luna replied, her mind racing through options. The creature was blocking their only safe path through the valley. The other routes would take too long, and Blick was already running low on energy again. The Shadow Stalker turned its head toward them, multiple eyes glowing in the darkness. It had picked up their scent. What do we do? Torque quivered, literally. Our weapons are useless against something that size. Luna looked at her team, a plant, a fish, a blob, and a human. On paper, they were the weakest team in Academy history. But paper didn't win battles. Blick, how much light can you produce right now? The photosynthetic being rustled nervously. About 30% of my maximum capacity. Why? Because we're going to give our friend out there the worst headache of its life, Luna grinned. Zena, how fast can you shoot water through your respiratory vents? Fast enough to cut through soft tissue at close range, Zena replied, then added hopefully, though I try not to advertise that fact. Perfect. Torque, remember how you spread yourself over the tree bark earlier? Time for an upgrade. Here's the plan. The Shadow Stalker approached cautiously, its thermal sensors detecting 4 very different heat signatures. The prey was unusual, but prey nonetheless. It coiled its massive body, preparing to strike. That's when everything went wrong. For the predator, at least. Blick suddenly lit up like a supernova, their accumulated energy releasing in a blinding flash. The Shadow Stalker reeled back, its sensitive eyes overwhelmed. It tried to retreat, only to slip on an unusually slick patch of ground where Torque had spread themselves into a near-invisible film. As the creature struggled to regain its footing, Zena unleashed precisely aimed jets of water at its leg joints, targeting the gaps in its natural armor. The beast roared in frustration, trying to locate its attackers through the chaos. Now for the finale, Luna muttered, pulling out their last piece of equipment, a simple coil of carbon fiber rope from their survival pack. Let's see if physics works the same way here as it does on Earth. Using the trees and her team's continued distraction, Luna rigged a primitive but effective trap. The Shadow Stalker, blinded and confused, stumbled right into it. Within seconds, the apex predator found itself tangled and tripped by its own momentum, crashing to the ground with an earth-shaking impact. Run, Luna shouted, and her team didn't need to be told twice. They sprinted past the incapacitated creature. not stopping until they reached the relative safety of the valley. That was Blick struggled to find words. Primitive, Luna suggested, catching her breath. No fancy tech, no advanced weapons. Brilliant, Torque corrected, reforming into their more comfortable blob shape. We actually took down a shadow stalker. We did it together, Luna pointed out. Each of us using what others might see as weaknesses. Being different isn't a disadvantage, it's a tactical opportunity. Zena made a sound that might have been a laugh. The instructors always said humans were adaptable, but they never mentioned you were slightly insane. Thanks, Luna grinned, already checking their map for the next challenge. Coming from this team, I'll take that as a compliment. The extraction point was in sight when Nexus 7 decided to remind everyone why uncharted jungle moons make terrible vacation spots. The ground began to shake violently, and the sky turned an ominous shade of purple. Massive electromagnetic storm approaching, Blick announced, their leaves detecting the changing atmospheric conditions, and something else, underground vibrations. Luna's eyes widened as she recognized the pattern. Everyone get to high ground now. But the extraction point, Zena protested. We will be underwater in about 3 minutes, Luna cut in, already herding her team toward a rocky outcropping. This is a flash flood combined with a magnetic storm. The gravity fluctuations are going to make it 10 times worse. Through the growing chaos, they spotted other teams scrambling for safety. Nexar's group was trapped on a rapidly crumbling ledge, their advanced gear malfunctioning in the electromagnetic interference. Even the mighty Draconid looked scared. We have to help them, Luna declared, already pulling out their remaining supplies. After how they treated us, Torque wobbled incredulously. Being petty is a luxury we can't afford right now, Luna replied, quickly braiding vines into a makeshift rope. Blick, I need your strongest photoreceptor beams. Zena, remember that water pressure trick? Time to use it for construction instead of combat. Working together, Luna's team created an escape route for the stranded cadets. Blick's light guided the way through the growing darkness, while Zena's water jets carved handholds into the rock face. Torque spread themselves thin to create a non-slip surface across treacherous sections. Grab the vine, Luna shouted to Nexar's team. Your fancy grav boots won't work in this storm. The Draconid hesitated for a crucial moment, pride warring with survival instincts. Then the ledge beneath him cracked. Trust the human, one of his teammates screamed, already reaching for the rescue line. One by one, they pulled the rival team to safety. Just in time, the valley below transformed into a raging torrent of water and debris, powered by the moon's unstable gravity field. This is unexpected, Nexar admitted, watching his team's expensive survival gear shorting out in the electromagnetic storm. We would have died if you hadn't helped us. Survival isn't about having the best equipment, Luna replied, checking to make sure everyone was accounted for. It's about adaptation, cooperation, and sometimes doing things the hard way. A break in the clouds revealed the extraction ship hovering above them, its shields barely holding against the storm. By the way, Luna added casually, pointing upward. That counts as reaching the extraction point. We all pass. The gathered cadets stared at her in disbelief, then began laughing, a strange chorus of clicks, rumbles, and various alien sounds of relief. Perhaps Nexar conceded, his scales shifting to a respectful blue hue. We were wrong about humans' place at the Academy. The graduation ceremony of the Elite Galactic Academy looked different this year. For one thing, Commander Krell Thor's tentacles weren't twitching with their usual superiority. For another, the top graduate wasn't a towering warrior species or a naturally gifted telepath. Luna Martinez stood at the podium, her standard-issue uniform modified with various practical improvements that were already being incorporated into the Academy's official designs. Behind her, her former team sat proudly, Blick sporting newly installed solar collectors, Zena in a more efficient hydration system, and Torque confidently maintaining their chosen form. When I first arrived here, Luna began, someone told me this academy was for the pinnacle of evolution. They weren't wrong. They just had a very narrow definition of what evolution means. The assembled graduates shifted uncomfortably, remembering their own prejudices from months ago. True evolution isn't about being the strongest or fastest, she continued. It's about adaptation, about finding solutions where others see only obstacles, about turning supposed weaknesses into unexpected strengths. Commander Krell Thor stepped forward, holding a data pad. In light of recent events, the Academy Board has revised its admission policies. Starting next cycle, we will be actively recruiting from what we previously considered limited species. How diplomatic of you, Commander Luna grinned. Though I should warn you, my little sister just submitted her application. And unlike me, she actually likes physical exercise. The commander's tentacles went completely still as nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. The galaxy's most prestigious military academy would never be quite the same again. And that was exactly the point.